Thank you, Eric.
All right, main jail, are we ready to proceed on Mr. Khune's case?
We're ready, Your Honor. Here's Mr. Khune.
All right. Mr. Abraham Khune. Once again, Mr. Khune is on page 18 of the docket. Once again, we have both Mr. Pesso and Mr. Schiller with us, who represent him in the criminal and family cases. Ms. Hoffman present with us from the state attorney's office, and Detective Graber is present with us on this case as well. Mr. Khune, good morning. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Khune, you're before the court this morning on one charge of aggravated child abuse. And for the record, I do find probable cause. At this time, I would like to hear from the attorneys, beginning with Ms. Hoffman for the state.
Thank you, Your Honor. Before I begin with the bond amount, I wanted Your Honor to be aware that I was able to review the defendant's financial affidavit from the family law case. The defendant in this case does have significant financial means. His assets, gross income is about $69,000 a month. His total net worth, according to that affidavit, is about $13 million, currently in stocks and cash and other assets. So the state would be asking for a $750,000 bond that is fully collateralized. The defendant has significant ties to California, which is where his company is based. He has a number of family members in California and Washington, as well as the majority of his family in India as well. So the state does have serious concerns about the flight risk here. The state also would be asking that, Your Honor, require him to surrender his passport and order no contact with both minor victims in this case, as well as their mother. They are not present today because they are in such fear of the defendant in this case. The defendant has previously told the mother that if this was reported to the police, he would kill her, and the family does not wish to see him right now and is extremely fearful for their safety. There is a prior allegation of domestic violence out of Washington in 2006 that was ultimately dismissed as the victim decided not to go forward with that. But the state does have serious concerns about Mr. Khune's ability to flee, his safety, the safety of the victims in this case, and would be asking that Your Honor order the $750,000 fully collateralized, house arrest level 1 with a GPS monitor, and no contact with the victims.
All right, let's begin with those issues. Mr. Pesso, I'm going to go to you next since you're representing Mr. Khune. Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. No disputing the wealth of my client. He is tied to the community. He's a high-level executive at Uber. He has significant wealth. There's no question. I want to point out something from the probable cause affidavit, which is important. This being a contentious divorce, Mr. Schiller's here because of that, and I have some background on that. There's allegations of parental alienation against mom, and I'm not going to argue the divorce, but they do tie in. Most importantly, the alleged injury in this case that the charge and the allegations arise from, it looks like an 18-month delay in reporting these. So in other words, this injury was allegedly a pencil into a hand and lead in the hand from 18 months ago to the time it was reported to law enforcement. So again, that puts some question on, the validity of the allegation. Is this another ploy in the divorce case? There's some questions there about we're not challenging probable cause, but I certainly believe that this becomes a much more defensible case because of certain facts. The amount of the bond, considering his wealth, I understand he's wealthy, but a bond in this case, I would believe, would be somewhere in the $5,000 to $25,000 range. There's no question of his ability to pay the bond, but $750,000 would be extremely excessive for these allegations, especially given what I've read in the PC. Number two, surrendering passports, agreed. No victim contact, 100% agreed. A reasonable bond that the court sets, you don't need any more argument on that. You understand that. I don't believe there's a need for house arrest. Given what the PC says, we should just be here with a reasonable bond that the court determines based on argument of state and defense, no victim contact, surrender the passports, but no house arrest. There's no basis for house arrest. He's a very responsible, high-level executive. He didn't build that wealth by being an irresponsible guy that's going to flee to India. He's willing to face these charges. I'm aware that this is a very defensible case, and we're prepared to proceed. And I'm going to need my client to cooperate with his defense because he's a very bright person. So given those, there's the differences from state and defense, and we'll rely on.
And Mr. Pesso, with respect to the level 1 GPS issue, is he working from home? What's his present situation?
I'm sorry, somebody was calling. I'm sorry. Say it again.
That's all right. With respect to the level 1 GPS issue, the level 1 would be the house arrest. What is, I would like to hear a little bit more about whatever his living situation or employment situation is. What's the necessity for him to be moving around?
Just because of his employment, he needs to be able to go to meetings. He needs to be able to work. I understand he works from home. There's no question he works from home, but he does have to have meetings and all. So I understand that, in all candor, he does work from home, but I would just, given the allegations and given his responsibility and given the delayed reporting, I don't know that there's a need for him to be with the ankle bracelet, but that's the court's to call. I believe given, it's a very bondable offense. Does he really need to have the ankle bracelet? He's not going to risk his job. He's been in reunification therapy with these kids, Your Honor. He's been trying to work it out. Mom, all of a sudden, 18 months later, says, oh, he stabbed the child with a pencil. It's a little suspect from a defense point of view. It's going to be a fun deposition, but all that aside, I think it's a very defensible case. I don't see the need for the house arrest, the GPS, the monitor. Nevertheless, those are the arguments. We'd like to, obviously surrender to passports, get the bond, no victim contact. Understand the state's arguments, but in all fairness, that's what we're asking you to do.
All right. Well, respectfully, I don't think there's anything fun about any deposition related to an aggravated child abuse case.
I'm sorry about that.
All right. And with respect to what I've reviewed in the probable cause affidavit, I'm less concerned with any statements the mother has given and more concerned with the information given from the children to, I believe it was Detective Graber herself that interviewed the children in this case. Is that going to be heard further at this point?
No, Your Honor, I'd just like to give Your Honor a little background since defense brought it up. The allegations in this case came about because the family court actually suspended the visitation with the father in this case because the 16-year-old and 11-year-old were wetting the bed prior to visits with him, even by Zoom, and they were manifesting these outward incidences, which is how this all came about to begin with, was when Dr. Williams suspended that visitation in the family court. So while we dispute their allegations as to how this came up, the victims in this case have been very adamant that their entire lives they have been abused by this man. They have been emotionally abused by this man. He has told them he wishes they were dead and were never born. He has thrown chairs at them. He has stabbed them with pencils. And this charge alone is just the tip of the iceberg of what these girls have been through.
Okay. All right. Mr. Pesso, final word, anything else?
Again, I would like you to take into consideration the context of the allegations. No question the allegations, if they're true, are serious. I apologize I believe there's a lot of impeachment material here. As to the mom alienating the children, you're probably going to have psychologists involved to determine the coaching and the alienation, but certainly there's nothing fun about that. And that was not a proper comment, but bottom line is there will be a lot of discovery. I would like you to consider the context of the allegations coming through a highly contentious divorce. The children have made statements. Those statements may be coached. There may be alienation. These are all issues for the case, but given the allegations, they are serious allegations. There's no question. But again, we're asking for a reasonable bond, no GPS, no victim contact, surrender passports. I don't believe he's going anywhere. He's worked his way up through Uber. Very responsible man, does work from his house. Those are your facts. I mean, those are your basics for bond.
Okay. All right. Thank you both.
Thank you, Judge.
All right. Frankly, in Mr. Khune's case, while I don't think any of us dispute what we've already discussed is very serious allegations in the case.
Yes.
What concerns me is the fact that you both have given me information describing an individual who has a large amount of wealth and money that is available to him. I'm aware it seems that he's got significant ties to the state of California and potentially ties to another country, which would be India. And I'm not as concerned with that since I believe you both have agreed to a passport surrender in the case. But in Mr. Khun's case, it's apparent to me that he has the ability to move or go wherever he would like in the case. And when facing significant allegations like these, I have to take those into consideration. In his case, for the time being, I am going to set a monetary bond of $500,000. And if that bond is posted, I am going to require pretrial supervision with a level 2 GPS monitor at this time. The level 2 is not necessarily house arrest, but it would require him to provide a schedule to pretrial supervision and abide by that schedule at all times. There will be orders of no victim contact in the case, which will apply to both of the minor alleged victims that are listed within the paperwork that we've received. And there will be a requirement that his passport be surrendered to the Broward Clerk of Courts prior to his release, and that he not possess or apply for any passport during the pendency of these proceedings.
Understood.
All right. Is there anything further from Ms. Hoffman or Mr. Pesso?
No,
Yes,
thank you, Your Honor.
The state would be asking that the no contact order apply to the mother as well. It also would be asking that that $500,000 be fully collateralized.
What's the basis for the request for full collateralization?
Based on the significant wealth of Mr. Khune, just as Your Honor can consider indigent defendants with no means to post the bond, this man has unlimited means. And at least at that point, the state would feel that when he's paying that full amount, that there's at least something hopefully tying him to financially to staying and proceeding with this case.
Okay, Mr. Pesso, you want to be heard on that issue?
Just the fact that the bond is huge. It's a huge bond, 500,000, given the wealth and given the concerns for, I understand the reason, but collateralization, I'm arguing against it. Court's discretion.
Okay, and Ms. Hoffman, I believe that you told me, which I obviously don't have it in front of me, but I'm sure Mr. Pesso or Mr. Schiller could tell me if it's not accurate. I believe you indicated that the financial affidavit in the other case reflects a net worth of $13 million. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor. I can give you the exact amount.
We're not going to dispute that. Both parties, mother and father, have substantial wealth, wife and husband.
Okay, thank you. All right, in that case, I am going to require full collateralization of the bond monies, and there will be an additional order of no contact with the mother of the children for the time being.
Understood.
And just so the defendant's aware, that includes not showing up at the minor victims' sporting events.
Yes, that would violate the no victim contact order.
He'll understand completely.
Right.
There's not going to be a violation.
I'm sure Mr. Pesso will also advise him the level 2 GPS monitor will also restrict those.
Yes.
Okay, before I have the two of you go, I just want to check in with confinement status for a moment based on these conditions, see what they need. Sheila, for confinement status purposes, based on the full collateralization and passport surrender requirements, I assume that you are proposed order from the state, correct? And Sheila, if you're speaking, we cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I sound like a commercial. Can you hear me now? Yes, Judge. I need the order for the passport and the bond collateral.
And Your Honor, I was going to reach out. I'm going to reach out to Ms. Hoffman and provide her what she needs to
Okay.
get those prepared.
Ms. Hoffman, after you get that information for the order, if you would please copy Sheila from confinement status, as well as Mr. Pesso, obviously on there. Mr. Linder can give you her email address if you don't already have it. I want to make sure, because the jail requires very specific language, no abbreviations, etc. We want to make sure that the formatting of the order is correct for their purposes so that we don't have any issues or delays in the case. So I would like to give them an opportunity to see it as well.
Your Honor, what I was going to suggest, if Mr. Pesso wants to give me his email, Ms. Hoffman could just send the orders to me and I'll forward them to all the appropriate parties.
Perfect, I'll do that.
All right. It's Steve, S-T-E-V-E, at Steven with a V, S-T-E-V-E-N, last name Pesso, P-E-S-S-O, .com. steve@stevenpesso.com, and Mr. Schiller and I will both review the orders, and we'll get right back to you as soon as you get it.
Very good. All right, after everyone is in agreement as to the orders, please just send them to me so that I can sign off on them.
All right.
Yes,
Thank you very much for the time, Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Schiller, Mr. Pesso, Ms. Hoffman, and Detective Graber. Thank you to all of you for being with us. Mr. Kuhn, thank you and good luck to you, sir.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Judge,
Yes.
whenever you're at the end of your list, as far as how it turns, I know I've been contacted by the main jail. If we could address Antoine Morris on page 26.
Okay, I have one more sign in and then
No problem.
Okay, do I have Ms. Small Williams back with us? All right. Ms. Small Williams, are you able to hear me? I can see that you're signed in with me.